Michael, dude, I'm pretty pumped for this. We all thought something else was coming, but apparently it's a brand new IP from the God of War studio. Let's find out what's happening here. Tom Ivan over at VGC. God of War developers, Sony Santa Monica Studio, is working on a new intellectual property, also known as IP. That's according to a LinkedIn profile of Glauco Longhi, who rejoined the Sony studio earlier this year to oversee character development on the unannounced project. Well, isn't that interesting? He first worked for Sony as a senior character artist on Uncharted 4 at Naughty Dog before taking on the same role at Sony Santa Monica Studios' God of War reboot in 2016. He then served as lead character artist as God of War Ragnarok before leaving the company to join the Callisto Protocol developer Striking Distance Studios, where he worked on character and art director as well. Prior to rejoining Santa Monica Studio in April, he spent 10 months as a studio art director at Subnautica developer Unknown Worlds Entertainment. Quote, Santa Monica Studios presented the opportunity of coming back as character supervisor, looking after the entire character development pipeline on their new IP. So here I am, thrilled to be back, working again with the crew and pushing characters and video games together. End quote. Reads his LinkedIn profile. Interesting. Sony Santa Monica director Cory Barlog, who helmed 2018's God of War, but stepped aside for the sequel, said in November 2022 that the studio was spread out on a lot of different things. End quote. As well as developing one of Sony PlayStation's flagship franchises, Santa Monica Studio has previously acted as a business incubator and publisher for indie game studios. That Game Company for Journey, Eat, Sleep, Play for Twisted Metal, Giant Sparrow, The Unfinished Swan, Ready at Dawn, The Order of 1886. More of like a hit cult following on the Order. Yeah. I personally liked The Order. I thought it was cool, but I know a lot of people didn't really resonate with that one. And Q Games with Pixel Junk. The studio was also believed to be working on a new sci-fi IP headed up by God of War creative director and former Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order Stig Asmussen prior to the cancellation and a round of layoffs in 2014. So if you play God of War Ragnarok, Michael, it was set up that it went kind of in curious directions. We'll call it that way. There's opportunities to do spin-offs, right? And other things like that. Will God of War, will Kratos be back for God of War? Will we get another God of War experience at some point? Corey and the team at the time, when they set up the first one back in, was it 2016? Yeah. In 2016, said they didn't want to do a trilogy. They wanted to make it 2 big parts instead. That's exactly what we got. So when it ended, I was like, as much as I was satisfied, I'm like, yo, you're setting up for more to come. Where is that? Not right now. It sounds like we're about to take a bit of a break.
Yeah, I think, God of War feels like it's that one that they can always just go back to, as you said. That last game ended in a way. There's so many different ways they could go. If this game ends up, getting kind of stuck in that development hell or something goes on, it's like, all right, let's just go back to God of War. We have options. But I personally am not a hater of saying, like, let's try something new, right? We know God of War is there. We know we can easily just put together God of War. It's going to be good. They've always been good. So I'm a little sad, like you are, that we're not getting a new one, but a new IP from the God of War studio that really hasn't missed at all. You got to be excited about that as more details come out, because this game is most likely going to be done very, very well, and maybe it becomes that next franchise or whatever for Sony. Basically say, we've got God of War, we've got Spider-Man, and now we've got this that we're also working on.
No, absolutely, right? So when this ended, probably, man, this was 5 years ago, I would think. Holy, wow, time flies, right? It's one of those, wow, that was a while ago now. Yeah. Huh, who knew? So now they're getting into this whole other direction now. We're going to the sci-fi. I hear, every time I hear Sony's working on something else, it's another sci-fi game. And I'm like, I don't know. Dude, I don't know. It makes me a little nervous. We're just going to get flooded with sci-fi content in the future. Which, granted, could be good, could be bad. We'll see. But it is Sony Santa Monica, and I have a lot of trust in that studio after coming off of God of War Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite games of all time. Ragnarok was such a, what a adventure that turned out to be. It was incredible. And then they brought us Valhalla too, when you get in that roguelike mode and try to push and see how far you can go with that. It was absolutely incredible. We're not done with God of War. Obviously, there is more going to be in the future. How they choose to spin that up, Who knows? I kind of felt the same thing though when he said Naughty Dog wasn't done with Uncharted. It kind of looks like they are. So we'll see, right? You just never know. But I think there's still something there. But the biggest thing for me then, when you're lining up for Sony moving forward, the sci-fi adventure, you have one of the best teams around right now with Bungie doing the sci-fi thing, right? With Destiny and Destiny 2. And they're going to be ramping into eventually from, I know they're in a bit of a hot water right now in the situation with a bunch of layoffs over there, which is just poor management from what the baseline understanding seems to be. But it's one of those things of, man, they do sci-fi already. How many sci-fi things do you want to get into, right? It's just, you want to make sure your portfolio is diverse enough so that you're going to be able to pick this group of gamers and then those group of gamers and then these group of gamers and have something for everybody. I think is the biggest key when you're moving in the world of PlayStation. But obviously there's a lot smarter people there at PlayStation than me, so I'm curious to see what's going on. Definitely cannot wait. Michael, you gotta feel like there's something going to be cooking here in the near future, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about how the current consoles are sort of on their down slide. I know the PS5 Pro is allegedly coming out. That got pushed back, but I think you're right. I think Sony's got to have a big title. If we get that PS6, which I assume we're going to get at some point in the next few years, it feels like we're on that next cycle of consoles that need to be more powerful. You're right. I think Sony's got to come up with something for that next gen of consoles. It's got to be their sort of release title for that console. I think you're right. And I do think one thing with sci-fi, it's such a broad umbrella. I feel like a lot of games, if you really zoomed out, you'd be like, that's sci-fi? Like, okay, I wouldn't believe you, but all right. So I do think that at least with sci-fi, it's such a broad genre, Drew. I'm with you. It feels like every other day we're like, this studio's working on sci-fi. This studio's working on sci-fi. But there's so many different routes you could go. I'm happy with that. But yeah, I think Sony is probably working on a next console generation release title to try and suck us all in. And so keep my eye updated for any updates because they've got my eye right now. I'm curious what they're going to do.
Absolutely. We'll keep you up to date right here, ITGTV.com.